My grandfather was a history teacher, and on the property, state history, but you learn something.
Oh, okay.
Can you do something with this?
When I grew up there, but it wasn't.
Are you gonna walk around with it?
It was scary. I mean, I went to I just doesn't
I never get to these bad.
We have matches to light the candle, we light the candle.
And are you gonna direct people from one side to the other?
sad part. Because people know that during the
I only shook the tree.
yeah, it is actually gone back.
I've got player error here. Oh, I probably have to sign it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Gotta come on up. Gotta join it. I didn't want to be weird since I'm eating, but. How are you, Diana? Still having a lot of hard stuff. Up and around kind of stuff, or? No, I think it's like just makes you exhausted. So there's nothing worse. Stop. Just stop it. Under your doctor's advice. That's yours, right?
Hey, let's go ahead and start. I'll read my screen. I'm streaming further back than usual.
Can everybody take a seat and we'll start in? Could I get somebody to close some of the doors just to get rid of the noise? Maybe leave one at the far side open so people can still come in, but
Hello. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Welcome. Welcome to our Sacred Grounds Congregational meeting. I hope more people will join us. But if not, we'll make do with what we have here, and everybody will have more of an opportunity to participate. So in today's meeting, we're really going to spend a lot of time looking forward to what we want to do in 2024 and possibly beyond. And we're also want to just briefly bring you up to date on what we've done and then get your ideas and priorities of what we might do. So we really invite everybody's participation and hope that you will feel free to join us at any of these projects. So, Vicki, would you light the chalice? May we know, once again, that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to the land, to this community, and to one another. So the purpose of our meeting, I think we'll start with Rod talking about a recap of the things we've done.
morning, welcome. So what you're going to find today is we're going to go through a few things very quickly because I really want to save the time for input and discussion at the end. That is the point. But I wanted to start with a teeny recap. This last year was kind of amazing for social grounds. Whatever we are. I guess that slip up is thanks to you, Denise. So Sacred Grounds. We did the patio expansion. Okay, the patio expansion, while coordinated by Sacred Grounds, was actually funded out of the church because it's a functional thing as opposed to an improvement related to Sacred Grounds. But the Sacred Grounds volunteers did the project design, oversight, etc. The celebration garden, how gorgeous is that, and how wonderful was that blessing ceremony? Just to give you some ideas for when we get to later, there were many hundreds of hours of volunteer put into that in terms of research, materials, stains, on and on and on. And the cost was about at $8,000. It's about what we did on that one. It was also a great in-reach event, very well attended and very community building. So I think that was very important. And in fact, if you look, it's sort of working in that more and more people are seeing the sacred stones that are out there and buying more, wanting to have a place now that they can actually honor and celebrate. So that's great. Then the other thing we did was the Desert Canyon Habitat. We got coverage in the Coachella Valley Independent, which is how Suzanne found us. Welcome. First-time visitor because of our Sacred Grounds project. That was conceived as habitat. It was part of the California Naturalist Capstone project, and is kind of intended to entice people to put a national park in their backyard, is a great way to put it. Again, that was hundreds of volunteer hours. These things don't happen by themselves. Wouldn't be surprised if that one's upper hundreds of hours. And its cost was about $7,000, just again to give you an idea. And the beauty of that one was more towards the outreach. We've developed a lot of connections throughout the conservation communities in the valley, et cetera. You'll hear under some breaking news from Dave in just a second, one of those that's panning out for us. But it was a massive outreach event. We had about 200 people online and present. So that's just a quick recap to give you an idea of what we did last year, how many hours it takes, what the costs involved are. So you have that as a background as we discuss what are we going to do in the next year. Dave?
I'm not texting anybody. I'm getting my clock going so I stay on schedule. There we go. So this is breaking news, and I assumed at first that it was groundbreaking news, about what has been happening. Then I thought, well, it's probably like live from the canyon. We're taking you there right now. We were walking around and realized that how nice it was, and someone suggested a geocache. I don't know if you're familiar with geocaching, but they also have something, an associated app on the smartphone called Adventure Lab. And so instead of finding an actual object, you get that to the site, and it's listed on Geocache or Adventure Lab maps, that there's 5 questions, and you only unlock the question when you get to a specific site in the garden. So right now there's 5 locations. One is Gene Kane's statue, one is the labyrinth, and then 3 of them are associated with the garden, and you have to go up and find that plant and then answer a question about something on the sign of the plant. And so that's worked out. Every time Sue and I have been there looking, working, or just coming by the church for whatever reason during the week, we see somebody walking around, obviously exploring the garden and getting to know the grounds of the church. And so the word is getting out there, what's here. Another thing that's come up, the Rod was excited to share with us, it's on this sign, poster, it's a little flyer, and it's a Desert Horticultural Society of Palm Springs. It's having a garden tour on March 16th, and there's 4 or 5 private yards or businesses where the gardens are. And then they added our native plant garden as a bonus, just because it's a little bit further away than the others. So we may be having some people that are interested in our garden coming in as part of a tour. So that's pretty exciting. Randy, are you here? I thought I saw. No. So that was already about the sacred stones, I guess. The other thing is, just so you know, our objectives as a Sacred Grounds steering committee is that we are creating this habitat for native species because climate change and also human encroachment has limited the environment for wildlife and also plants. It's a beautiful space. People find it just driving by. They're going to the dog park and they look over and they come over here and see what's going on. It's healing and inspiring. It's a sacred space. It's very, very calming. People that have come there, they say, oh, we missed your grand opening, but we want to come by. And then they got here and they say, we didn't want to leave. We just want to sit here and soak all this in and just look around and walk around another time. It connects people to nature specifically. If you don't know what these plants are, there's a sign and it tells you its name, and then some of them have a description of how they've been used by indigenous people and continue to be, and how they fit into their ecosystem. And then the other things that we do, as Rod mentioned, is we do some things that are functional for the success of the church itself, the grounds, the building. One of the things we've proposed is to get something to grow up the back so that it's a green wall that can absorb the rays of the sun and not have the sanctuary get so hot in the summer. And then our process of how we go about it this is one big important part of it, is that having all of you come and tell us what you think. Add, just go, oh, yeah, that sounds good. And then we'll go ahead and carry on. Or if you have some suggestions or things that you don't like or have some issues with, whatever, we want to make sure that we reach out to everybody and that everybody's staying up on top of what's going on. So we have a steering committee. Right now there's 7 or 8 people: Rod, Diana, myself, Sue, John, Randy, Jack, Mel, and Jerry. And so now as Rod said, we're wrapped up for the things that we started last spring. So now we're at the next place where we are, where if we're going to do more plants, that would happen in October and November, the planting season. So right now we're discussing what we want to do in our meetings, and we're presenting some of them to you today. And now we're trying to get some input. So it's a little bit of a timeline, because in March we want to have this presented to the board at their meeting and get some preliminary approval. 1 minute to spare.
So one of the things that we're talking about doing more next year is having more programming and classes that our congregation and friends can participate in. And I'm going to tell you what some of our ideas are, and then I'm going to ask you just to raise your hand to say, oh, I might be interested in taking something like that. But I think that some of them will have a broad appeal to people. So one of the things we're talking about is deepening your personal connection to the land and its inhabitants, and forming a relationship or friendship with individual plants or trees or native animals. And so I would be leading that, and I would be drawing on some of the teachings that I've had from shamans and from poetry from Mary Oliver and others. And that would be probably meet just once. So are any of you interested in something of that nature? Great. Then Sue and Rod and Dave have volunteered this spring to take people on wildflower walks right on our grounds here. So I think it was Sue, I'm not sure who else, did a wonderful job of throwing out lots of wildflower seeds. And so we have them coming up all over. So would people be interested in going on such a tour? And then Jack Fitzsimmons has offered to teach an iPhone photography class, and Fran has said that she would do an Android with Android. So this is how to take photographs outside with the plants. Who would be interested in something like that? And then we're either this spring or this fall, we will probably do some plein air drawing and painting outside that John Ressler and Lisa Spencer would do. Any of you artists who would like to participate in something like that? Okay. So in the fall, we were waiting until the weather is of the right time to do some classes on creating native gardens at home. Alicia, who was here for the ceremony in January, has offered to teach us how to plant native plants and what would work in your garden. Any people interested in that? And then Dave and Jerry have also are interested in, we'll teach on how to compost, how to do composting. Interest in that? And then Karen Eisbrands-Braun will do a class on mindful recycling. It's a 2-series class on how to do that. Any interest in learning more about that? So, and of course, there are always the weekly events, and you're always invited to come on a Tuesday morning to help Jerry and others work in the garden. And we have special larger weed pulls. There's another weed pull, I think, in the middle of March. And I think it's at the 12th? It's the 13th?
12/13 is the Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday. Yeah. So please consider that. It's from 8 to 12. And then once we get ourselves, I think, more on the ground here, we would like to contemplate doing some more public outreach. And we might, whether we involve children or classes and tours or do some public affairs. But I don't think we're quite ready for that yet. So thanks. We'll have more input and we'll tell you more about the classes because the spring classes will happen in March and April. So we'll get the publicity out soon on those. All right. Oh, while I'm still here, Randy asked me to tell you, he had to leave, about the sacred stones, that he needs 4 more orders in order to have enough orders to place to have them finished. And if you're interested, let him know. The sacred stone is $250, and there's requirements about how much writing you can, lettering and stuff you can put on them. But he's available, so just give him a call or shoot him an email if you have one that you'd like to do. Thanks.
And then there's the projects we're talking about. Okay, so far we've talked about program. There's also projects. And so let me go through a little bit of those. First is there's actually some currently underway, which we are doing and hopefully you'll like. The first is benches. We actually been planning on benches for some time. We now have a volunteer group of people. Denise Stevens is the one leading that, and they're developing a proposal to take to the board. That'll provide a bench under the Palo Verde outside of the Celebration Garden. If you've gone down to the Habitat, you can see that there's one spot that's cleared out next to the trail. It's just sort of flat. What's that all about? That's where a bench is going to go. And then we'll put one in the creosote garden that we're going to be talking about in a second. The other thing that we're doing is we've found that people cut between the new Habitat and the Labyrinth, and that's really not safe. Oh, okay. And that isn't really safe because going over that dry creek bed is rough rocks. So we talked about putting a bridge over it, and then Sue had a brilliant idea and put together a demonstration of it. Grab a whole bunch of flat rocks and just kind of scoop down where the creek is and make it so that basically it's stepping stones. And so that's in good shape. And maybe we'll even put a handrail on it. Don't know, John's taking a look at some of the ideas of maybe putting a handrail on that. So that would connect those two areas. Again, originally we didn't intend to connect them, but if you keep seeing people jump across something that's not safe, you kind of go, okay, let's fix it. So we have a number of projects we're going to talk about that are habitat or otherwise gardens. The first is a creosote scrub area. And I'll show a map in a second as to where we're proposing to put that. But it's a additional habitat. We kind of already have the below sand area, and the main thing we want to do there is educate people with it, but not ruin the milk vetch. So the third one on the list, the point will be a light touch to let people really see the endangered species and enjoy it. And that'll be back here, kind of to the side behind the building. The creosote, likewise, a lot of what we need there is already there. It's full of a lot of brittle bush, and we've planted how many creosotes at this point? Probably a dozen or so creosotes. And so that'll be a simple sand path. So much less labor, much less construction, much less cost than some of the other gardens, just because of the nature of what the garden is. So that'll be a pretty straightforward one to do. And then one that needs all you landscape designers and folks with good ideas, and that is, so I'm just calling it the year-round bloom, but another way to describe it was make this entrance absolutely gorgeous. So while I'm strong on native species, for the entrance, if we can figure out how to do some year-round bloom, reasonable maintenance, low water, that kind of thing, but is gorgeous, and those who have ever been to Jerry's house know what we're talking about. If we can do Jerry's front yard as the front of the church, that would just be absolutely drop-dead gorgeous. So that's kind of what the year. So those are the three habitat and garden projects that we'd like to get some input on today, see what you think. Then there's functional projects. I forgot, I do actually have a map. I'll show you the map and then I'll go to the functional projects. This gives you an idea of what goes where. The labyrinth, the peace garden, some of those are already in place. The desert canyon habitat, you can see where that is now. And that's my kludgy attempt to show where the paths are. Up above, so upper right, will be where the creosote scrub habitat goes. And then bottom left is marked as below sand. That's where our endangered milk vetch lives. So that's the area that we largely want to preserve and do a light touch and really help educate people. And you'll notice it's kind of weird where it's sort of down there in the bottom right, and then it's got a wing going up along the side. That's because it's blow sand. We need to preserve the path of the sand that blows into the property. Because as soon as we cut that off, it moves to stabilized dune, also known as creosote scrub. So we want to keep the wind tunnel and the blowing sand going through those areas. So that gives you an idea of what goes where. So we have a couple of just functional things, we'll say. And by that, I mean things that really aren't quite the charter of the sacred grounds and not really what the donors to the sacred grounds necessarily want to fund, but we can provide the leadership on it and some of the design. So these are proposals we'd take to the board, which we would say, if the board's interested, they would also be funded through the church as opposed to through the sacred grounds. One is replace the trees along Key Largo. I don't know if you're aware or not, but we used to have trees that were the perimeter all the way around with the Palo Verdes, and slowly over the years as irrigation failed, a number of the trees that were between the retention pond and the street have died and gone away, and so that's kind of a bare land. So we'd like to replace those. And we might actually replace them and put something a little bit more dense. I'll call it a hedge, but I'm not sure anything that with low water use is really a hedge, but that kind of a thing to give us some screening. And then the other is the green wall that Dave alluded to. In the summer, if you put a thermometer on this wall on the inside, I've recorded it at 97 degrees. Trying to run an air conditioner to cool solid brick that's 97 degrees is incredibly expensive. And likewise, if you're standing here in the pulpit and talking and you have a 97-degree radiator behind you, anyway, probably don't have to sell the need, but that's something where, again, it's an opportunity that perhaps if somebody's so motivated can volunteer to figure out, should we put some trees back there? Should we put an arbor back there? Should we put some tall bushes back there? But that's an area that we currently don't have anybody signed up to lead a design piece, but might be functionally very, very handy for the church. So it's on the list, kind of hoping that's somebody's heart dream. And then the last piece, which gets even fuzzier, is meditation garden has been proposed a number of times. At one point, it was discussed as being over by the bench that we have off past the community room, Reverend Barbara's dedication bench when she retired. And that's a possibility. There's discussion as well that maybe that meditation garden shouldn't be on a busy street. It can be a little bit more distracting. So that's something that if somebody wants to take a look at making some specific proposals, that would be a cool thing to have happen. And then probably the most fuzzy is the retention pond. By area, that's kind of our single biggest opportunity. It's huge. The only real rule we have from Rancho Mirage, and I've checked, is we can't decrease the cubic volume of the retention pond. But you can landscape it. You could make it a shape other than a rectangular bathtub. You can do things as long as it has the cubic volume to store water, because that's its purpose. And so that could be anything from another habitat. Obviously, a desert dry wash would be perfect, and desert willows around and that kind of thing. Or it could be an amphitheater. Or it could be, anyway, this is another one that I just list as opportunity waiting for somebody who gets excited and wants to work out a little bit of a proposal. But those are the two that are probably the most fuzzy. Is there excitement for a meditation garden? And what should we do with a retention pond? And then how would those prioritize compared to the other projects that we do have a little bit more scoped out? Hence, we should get congregational input and see what people think. Oh man, we're good. We are exactly on time as we switch to discussion of throwing the topics alive to people of what are you interested in, maybe even have an idea that's not on this list. What are you concerned about? What lights up your heart? So Cheryl has a mic, and if you want to raise hands to give any comments or input or suggestions, then we can begin. And again, I'm hoping we get a good, lively discussion. We are you viewers, after all.
If I can ask the first question, geocaching, is there a way to track how many people have used it? 'Cause back 20-some years ago, I did some geocaching when I could walk better than I do now. Yes. And they had a little box or something where you would take something out and put something in, and then you'd record what you did.
There's a physical geocache like that. You described that pretty well.
Wait for the mic, and then...
Yeah, the geocache physical actual spot can't be close to another one. There's a limitation on that, and there's one at the dog park. So that's why they did the adventure lab here, and the other thing was that would be guiding people on the trails and not having them walk around and search for something they don't know where it is and stomp on the plants. So I don't know how it can be, but I know that they are measured. And Ann Iwata, who set this up for us and is now in the naturalist class this spring, and wants to participate in the Sacred Grounds development, has shared, there was 3 people the first day, and so she's the manager of the site, so she can let us know.
I can add just a bit to that. So there's the total number of people who visit, which is not available except to the manager of the site. But people can make comments. We have 17 comments and 4.8 stars, which is like one of the highest rated adventure labs in the valley. So that's pretty cool.
Every time I come out here, I am intrigued to see either the roadrunner or a few of the crows or ravens that are there. If trees were planted, might they also attract some birds, even hummingbirds and doves? I know the dove is the sound of the desert I enjoy.
So the question was about trees. So we did put 5 ironwoods into the new habitat. They're currently about this tall and have 0 branches, so they don't look like much. We actually discussed putting in bigger trees so that we could get there quicker, but in the desert, you really want to plant tiny trees so those roots just go straight down. If you start with a big pot and it already has the trees' roots running around in a circle, it's kind of a problem. So we did put some. We also have added mesquite along this back wall because someday that's going to be a residential area. So we planted mesquite pretty much end to end, wouldn't you say, Dave? Pretty much end to end. So that whole area will become mesquite. That's important in a couple of ways. Mesquite's probably the most important tree in our valley as far as native species goes. It's considered a keystone species, so for birds and on and on and on. But that's a huge one. And the mesquite population in our valley now is about 5% of what it was naturally, because where it really grew was at the base of the hills, and guess where development started? So we wiped out most of it. So there's a couple things. I can't help but say, unfortunately, ravens and roadrunners, neither one are my friends. Ravens are a species that is hugely benefited by humans, and the number of ravens we have in the valley is now considerably higher. I think Dr. Cam says it's somewhere around 20 times higher than what it would be, except we put trash out and anyway, they're basically a flying rat. And then I go to the roadrunners, which I know everybody loves here, and I've seen way too many desert iguanas hanging in the roadrunners' mouths for me to love roadrunners, and they are also a species that goes up with human interference. So unfortunately, the 2 birds that you love, I'm sorry to say, aren't on my favored list, but it does get back to the more that we do trees, like you say, and native species, we restore the balance, and we'll get a lot of the bird species that we ought to have here. And so the heart of your question, yes, absolutely.
I might have some doves too. I love to listen to
Yep.
quail.
Some of the plants are not classified as trees, but they're really big shrubs. The desert lavender will get 15, 20 feet tall.
So Dave, we have a couple people online. We have a couple of people listening on stream, and they can't hear you.
Okay, sorry. How many are there?
Well, in particular,
I'm
Bill.
talking to you.
In particular, Bill and Joni obviously
Yeah, so
can't come and wanted to hear.
a lot of the shrubs, a lot of the plants will get very big. The tuberoses can be 6 feet across and 5 feet tall. Desert mallows, those beautiful apricot-colored flowers will get very big. And the desert lavender in particular will be quite large. And so all of those will attract other kinds of birds too. We've already seen some verdin coming through, yellow-rumped warblers, lots of great songbirds will be living in the garden.
Also, to your point, I'd like to hear what people are interested in, and if the budget permits, perhaps we could plant some larger trees so we get a little bit more of an exciting habitat sooner. I'm not the most patient person either.
So a few weeks ago, I came over with my iPhone and my Merlin ID. Did anybody know about Merlin? Which Cornell Laboratory. And it's downloaded for free on your phone. And I can't remember all the species that I heard, but there were about 10 different species of birds singing. So there are quite a few here now. And I'll make a point of coming back and let you know what I'm hearing.
I saw a vermilion flycatcher here last week, and if anybody's seen one of those before, they're just jaw-dropping gorgeous.
About doves, sometimes I park the car out in the parking lot to take my dog and parrot for a walk, and almost every time when the parking lot is empty, there are quite a few doves, both mourning doves, which are native, and the collared doves, which are not, and kind of taking over. I have yet to see a white wing, but
Yeah.
probably we'll get some of those too.
Comments?
More suggestions, or even just an endorsement of which of these ideas did you get excited about? Carol in the back.
I don't know if I'd say excited, but I'd say really necessary to cool down that wall.
And that's a great segue to ask for volunteers, because it is a great generosity practice, in case you
Then
never
I'm not
thought
going to
about that.
say what I was going to say.
Because each of the things that has happened is because somebody got excited enough to do it. I mean, basically Sue, Dave, and Mel took the CalNat class and as their capstone designed the garden. And that gave the momentum and we finished it. So really, like the green wall, it would be huge to do. It would be wonderful. It'd be amazing. Same with the year-round color. And it will happen as soon as somebody's excited enough to start putting pen to paper and making up ideas.
Well, I've always loved the idea of the green wall back there.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. More. Okay, nobody gets to leave until we have at least 3 more.
How big is the pond or the dry wash or whatever that is? I mean, when you're talking amphitheater, how many people could be there? Cheryl's mind goes to concerts, even if they're little ones.
So if you look at this picture, the creosote area looks pretty huge, but to the right of it is a whole bunch of bare sand. And that bare sand basically goes to the labyrinth. So you have the slope all the way around and then the flat in the center. It's huge. There's a lot of real estate right there.
Are there restrictions on the kind of surface we can use? So in other words, theory, an amphitheater would be concrete or paved or something. that would change, or grass that would change the, how do I want it, water solubility of the ground. So I'm just curious about that. Not as a problem, just curiosity.
It's a good question. The solubility, I don't know. Like for us to pave the whole thing to asphalt, I'm sure would be a problem, right? But I do know there are various HOAs that, for example, just incorporated it right into their golf course and you golf right through it. So clearly grass is legal. I've seen them landscaped. Part of it is, of course, it's intended for floods. So if you put something there and it washes out, bummer. But I can also say that after Hurricane Hillary, what would you say? We had a couple of inches of water covering a third of the bottom of that pond. I mean, it's like even Hillary didn't do very much to that. So I'm not too worried about that part. But yeah, I would expect that. I mean, clearly, if we make a plan, we're going to take it to the city and make sure. I mean, we have to. And I would expect non-permeable is probably not legit. They're more like a Palm Desert amphitheater, not like the Indian Wells amphitheater.
Would the whole wall have to be covered back here, or just the part where the lectern is? As far as landscaping and trees and something to break the...
So Barb asked, what's the extent we need for the green wall? And basically, it's scalable, right? I mean, the more that you do, the more you save on the AC and the bigger the project and the work to do. So we could start small and extend. We could just do a piece. If the primary issue is comfort for folks up here, which I think you tell me, Revian, what do you think? It's a little toasty. So we, if we started here and got that done in 1 year, and then we extended, and that helps on saving money on the electric, it's scalable. Yeah. It's warm for the piano. It turns out warm for the storage room. I can't remember what it was a couple of years ago. So you might recall, we had one of our renters had some stuff stored there. Oh, it might have been when Weight Watchers was renting. They had some food and it all overheated and ruined. That was an oops. Yeah, so the challenge really is what's the right kind of a height. And in particular, the heat we're talking about is the summer sun when it's a little higher in the sky. By the way, that isn't a south wall. South is more or less north-south, kind of this line. So this is your worst case. It's the southwest afternoon wall in the desert. But yeah, height is an issue because the higher you go, the more help on AC. On the other hand, there's a solar panel right there. So up and over is probably not such a great idea. Or likewise, some kind of a bush that is very messy, like, I don't know, a desert willow, might be a bad idea because then we start cleaning the solar panels. The good news on the solar panels, unforeseen, but is they've been up, is this its third year or fourth year? We just started its fourth year. We have never cleaned them and haven't had to. And we've had a couple of dust storms, and then I watched the production, and it might dip a little for a few days, and then more wind comes by, and it's self-cleaning. It's great. We don't want to ruin that by having something that dumps garbage on top of the panels. So there's a bunch of things to think through on the green wall.
Would it be possible to do something like shade cloth, where you're not actually planting something, but it would give shade to the wall?
So Cheryl asked, what about it? Not necessarily planting, but a shade wall. Yeah, I mean, anything. You could put a grape arbor up there. I don't care. There's many ideas of what maybe we could do. Just make some proposals and think them through enough for the types of questions we're having here. And the other thing to as well keep in mind is that at one point there was discussion of expanding the building and expanding it that way. Don't know that we ever will or would, but we probably don't want to make an incredibly expensive investment out there and then follow it by blowing the wall down and expanding the room. So there's a whole bunch of things that need thinking through. We need to make sure we don't, but depending on how far the green wall went out, if it's 5'10", I mean, right now we've got the walking paver stones that we use to go access some of the mechanical areas and stuff. So that's already not blow sand. If you go out 5 or 10 feet from the building, that first part's probably no big deal. If you go and close off the blow sand, that's a problem. You did meet the minimum requirement of 3 to be able to get out. Congratulations.
Well, it seems to me like a lot of people are a little interested in this. But it also needs some research. Is there anyone interested in doing any research on this? Yeah.
We've talked about it and considered what plans. We've talked about the green wall and considered what plants might work there. I mean, when you think about how sunny it is and all that, ficus is a thought, even though it's sort of the devil, right? We all don't really love ficus. There's Caliandra, which might be nice. It'll grow up 10 feet, very pretty. Hummingbirds love it. Be nice, have to build some sort of support for them. So those are just thoughts that, we've had. So, yeah, so come join the Sacred Grounds Committee and we can talk about it more, right?
Yeah, I mean, when Dave talked about the process and said who's on the steering committee, the steering committee simply consists of people who get excited about something and join in. It's dynamic. I mean, for that matter, as some of us, if our favorite heart projects are done, we may slide off the steering committee. If other people are interested in something like a green wall, jump on. But at the end of the day, what gets done is whoever signs up to help make it happen. And so with the green wall, it does sound like there's a fair amount of interest. If a couple of you can put your heads together, get some momentum, we can just do it.
Got a request, since we're all talking, can we switch cameras so that people online can see the room? Yep. Well, while you're doing that, I just had a thought. When we talk about a green wall, it sort of projects an image of a uniform bank of greenery out there, maybe monospecific kind of thing. But since one of our values as a religion is diversity, maybe we should be thinking of kind of a small mixed forest or a mixture of different kinds of planting that might offer a little more stability of growth and that sort of thing. And so maybe we should use some other term than wall in reference. We have a wall that we want to shade.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's just a kind of off-the-wall thought.
Yeah, that makes sense. Don't know if everybody heard John, but his point was, let's not just do one monoculture, one species all lined up in a straight line. It could be something a lot more interesting in multiple species. And that maybe the name green wall just implies a trimmed hedge, beautiful, just like all the gardens in the valley that we hate. Yeah, that's not what we're looking for.
It is.
Just to kind of, maybe some research should be done on just what construction-wise might be done to the building. Leave that for the facilities department committee to take care of. I'm thinking it's a great idea, the idea of green, but there are so many other things out there, and this seems like an actual facilities issue. Well, it is. It's about saving money on AC, and that's a construction issue. It's not a sacred grounds issue, from my point of view.
So again, in case people couldn't hear, the point was this is very much overlap with facilities. We're not talking about it as creating habitat, although maybe we could. We're really talking about it as cooling the building. And from a facilities viewpoint, there's other options like even just insulation or whatever. And no matter what we do and who volunteers to lead it, definitely needs to coordinate with facilities. And as I alluded to, based on that same kind of a comment, this would probably not be consistent with the what donors are thinking they're buying with donations to sacred grounds. So the proposal would probably be, does the church have funding to do whatever we do, which is another discussion.
As a member of the Facilities Committee, I'd like to draw to your attention that the membership of our committee is down to about 5 people. And so if you want to suggest that some of this construction idea be passed over to facilities, we'd need a lot of you to join the Facilities Committee because we are shorthanded right now.
I can't help but editorialize a smidge here with respect to overlap facilities and sacred grounds. Currently, we don't have anybody in the volunteer position of overseeing the gardener. I mean, Jerry sort of does it and keeps insisting that it's not what he does, except for nobody else is doing it. And so, for example, Friday broke a number of our hearts because the gardeners just went crazy on the raking, and a huge amount of the wildflowers are gone.
Oh, no.
I have a wildflower tour I was going to do where I was going to start here and then go to other locations. I'm not going to now. So that's another position that overlaps between, is we need somebody to work with the gardeners on what to do and what not to do. And I don't blame the gardeners. That's what most folks want. And in the absence of us having somebody meeting with them every week and joining them and talking about what we ought to do this week, they do what they assume we want. But for those of us who've walked the grounds and compare what there was the week before, it was kind of heartbreaking. All righty. We are exactly at 59 minutes, which was our agenda. Dang, we're good. So those of you in online land, stream land, if you have input that you'd like to hit, you can email me or you can email Sacred Grounds. Were you going to do an extinguish the chalice? You have any words? Do we have any closing, or is that it?
No, that's it. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you. Oh, is that where you're going camping? Nice. Oh, yeah.